If you're unhappy in your job right now, there's a good chance that you're asking yourself questions like, I wonder what other jobs are available near me. Maybe it'll be better if I go somewhere else. Or what about another specialty? Could I switch to something else and be happier? Or even, should I leave medicine altogether? But what most people don't stop to think about, because no one ever has taught us to think about this, is what model of work do I actually want to work in? Not just where you work, not just what specialty you're in, but how your job is structured. Because two PAs and NPs can work in the same specialty, in the same city, and have completely different lives depending on whether they're full time, part time, per diem, contract, locums, hybrid, or even inpatient versus outpatient. And I see this pattern all the time. People are miserable, burnt out, desperate for relief, and they jump straight from one full-time job into another full-time job without ever stopping to ask whether the structure of their work is actually a big part of the problem. So today I kind of want to zoom out. And this video is about expanding how you think about your career and your career options before you make your next move. Because sometimes the solution isn't a new specialty or even a new employer. Sometimes it's a different employment model. Now, your employment model affects more than people realize. It shapes your schedule and flexibility, your financial stability, your benefits and time off, your burnout risk, and whether medicine is actually survivable in the long term. I've talked to PAs and NPs who love their specialty but hated their job, and others who stayed in medicine because they changed environments or how they worked, not necessarily their specialty. So if you're feeling stuck or desperate right now, I want you to hear this clearly. You probably have more options than you think. You just haven't really been shown the full menu yet. So let's look at some of these different models. First off is the one we most default to, the traditional work model, which is us working full-time as a W-2 employee with a fixed schedule or fixed number of shifts per month. There's nothing inherently wrong with this model, but it's important to recognize that this is only one way to work. Now let's start with part-time work. I think part-time work is often misunderstood or dismissed too easily. People sometimes think of it as less serious or just a temporary move or something that financially is not even available to them. But many clinicians do this with a very intentional strategy and work part-time either for a short amount of time or as a long-term plan. Now, people may choose part-time work because it can help prevent burnout or help them recover from burnout. It may create space for them, for their family, or to be a caregiver. They may work part-time to help them build a business or side project, but still have income coming in, or as a way to transition out of clinical medicine, or even a way to transition into it to begin with. And I know a lot of people think they can't do part-time because of the pay or benefits, but the pay doesn't have to drop all that drastically, and sometimes you can keep benefits like PTO, health insurance, and CME money. Now that's a whole nother big conversation in and of itself, and I do have a video breaking that down, including things to ask your employer if you're wanting to look into this. So I'll link that video up here. I'll also put it down below in the description box if you want to check that out later. And for some people, it's the solution that helps them stay working in medicine where they can make a very good hourly wage instead of leaving to do something that pays significantly less. Now, the next thing I want to talk about is per diem and PRN work. And people may wonder if there's a difference between those, but for all practical purposes, per diem and PRN are essentially the same thing. They both mean as needed work, no guaranteed hours, usually hourly pay, and typically no benefits. So per diem or PRN can be a great option if you want flexibility and schedule control. You work when you want to work. It can be a great way to supplement income if you have a part-time job or if you work a schedule like 7 on and 7 off where you have days where you can pick up other shifts. And it also can be used as a bridge between different roles. If you're leaving a full-time job and haven't found something else yet, or if you're going through credentialing, think about working PRN or per diem. But on its own, this is still a very valid employment model. Just working PRN or per diem can be what you do. And if you need to generate more income or In a position where you need more stable income, many PAs and NPs actually work PRN at more than one employer, as long as there's no conflict of interest language in your contracts. And this is a great strategy because it actually increases the number of shifts that are available for you to pick up, potentially allowing you to create almost a full-time income, but with the flexibility to work when you want to work. Now, next is contract jobs. A contract position is simply one that has a fixed term. Many of them are for a year or more. And you'll see contract positions in places like hospitals, government and federal roles. I did a stint with the U.S. Army, a contract job for a year, doing soldier separation physicals. So there are a lot of opportunities there. You can do contracts with correctional and detention facilities, rural and underserved areas, occupation or corporate medicine, academic and educational settings, and research and clinical trial settings. Now, obviously, the appeal of contract work is that there is a defined end date. So if you get into something that you don't really like, you're not stuck with it forever or have to go through all the drama of leaving a job. And for people who feel trapped, that alone can feel incredibly freeing. Plus, it's a great way to keep things fresh in your practice and to experience different work environments, but have some more of that stability. The obvious downside, of course, is that you will have to find new employment once that opportunity ends. And next, there's locum tenens. And I think locums is another one of those misunderstood employment models. A lot of people assume locums always means constant travel, short-term assignments, but that's not true. Locums assignments can vary in length from as short as one day up to several years. And local locums is a possibility, especially if you live in a large metro area. So you would be able to actually stay in your own home and just have a normal commute like other people. You don't have to travel at all. Or if you wanted to, you could expand that so that you're working in like the region around your home within a couple of hours. But of course, for those who want the adventure, you can always choose to travel to another state. And keep in mind that if you do federal locums jobs, like working with the military, the VA, or the Indian Health Service, you don't even have to go through all the hassle of getting another state license. Any active state license will work. People often choose locums for that flexibility in their schedule to be able to work for a chunk of time and not work if they don't want to be able to make sure they get every Christmas off or certain holidays, whatever it is that they want. Locums can give that to you in your schedule. But people also work locums for the opportunity to make more money. Often the hourly wage for locums is much higher. And it's often 1099 work, which means that you open yourself up to having some additional tax write-off to offset your income. But people also choose to work locums so that they can take temporary, what I call relief breaks, to help them avoid the burnout of working in medicine full-time year-round. Now, I do want to say that there's one important caveat if you're considering doing local locums, and that is that most locums companies have a contract that you sign that prevents you from being hired directly by the employer that you're being placed with, unless the employer decides to buy out your contract. Now, this doesn't make local locums a bad idea or something you should totally avoid. It just means that you need to understand this before diving in. Next, I want to talk about hybrid roles. So for some clinicians, they may not want to leave medicine or even their job necessarily. They want to still see patients clinically, but then they want to do other things. They have other interests. So hybrid roles are most commonly a mix of working clinical and then working in administration or leadership roles, or working clinical and pairing it with education, like being a teacher at a PA or NP school, or working clinical and doing consulting work. These options often become more viable once you understand your value and your leverage, which we'll talk about later in this career series. And next, let's talk about working outside of the US. I know a lot of people are very interested in this right now, either because of what's going on in our country or because they want to experience a healthcare system that is not so much a business of medicine. Now, obviously, moving overseas isn't something that you kind of jump into casually, and it's not for everybody. but I want you to know that it is an option. Now, there are many countries that we can work in as US trained PAs, but I think the most viable right now and the most interesting for most US PAs is Canada and New Zealand. In fact, both of those countries are actively recruiting for US trained PAs. But also, don't forget the US territories. These would include places like Guam, Saipan, and the Northern Mariana Islands, and the US Virgin Islands. And of course, some clinicians also work in the US embassies around the world. So if you want to hear from people working in these different systems and see if practicing outside the US is something that you would like, you're in luck. I have interviews on this channel about most of those opportunities. Those conversations actually live in a playlist I made called Working Overseas, which I'll link up here and down below in the description box. I just really want you to know right now that if you're feeling miserable in medicine, that you don't have to panic quit. You don't have to jump from one full-time position to another just because it's familiar and you think that's your only options. So before your next move, please ask yourself, do I need to look for stability in a job right now or flexibility? Do I want to optimize for money, for time, or for my sanity? And could a different model solve the problem I'm having without changing specialties at all? Sometimes the answer for people is leaving medicine, and I totally respect that and understand it. But sometimes you don't have to escape practicing medicine. You just need to reshape it into something you can live with. Now, I'm curious, did this video help you think differently at all about your choices? If so, let me know down in the comments and tell me which employment model sounded the most interesting. This video is part of my larger career series, so I'll link that right here. Thank you for watching. As always, take care, stay sane, and I'll see you next time on the Medicine Couch. Bye.